Lovely. That is the dulcet tones of something telling us that we're ready to go. We are going. We are here. We are up and ready. Welcome everybody. This is episode 17 of Gen GMs. It is June 9th, 2026. And that over there is one Mr. Zach Clay.
And that over there, am I pointing the right way?
Yeah, no, you're
Is
going the other way. That's this way, I think.
that over
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is Greg Wilson.
I got my GM equals PC squared shirt, which, as I've
That's
said to
great.
many people, does not mean better than. It just means either that,
Yeah.
like, it could mean that, or it could also mean it's better than a personal computer, which I think is true in terms of, and on the back of it, it has this, you can certainly try,
Ah,
and it's got like a DM 47, like a Bible verse.
wow.
So anyway, that my son got that for me. So my daughter
That's
got that.
great.
But yeah, so we're here. We're ready to go. It's been a little while since we have done a recording, but you may have noticed, or hopefully will have noticed, that we are now, we have a video editor back in the fold who is regularly putting stuff out, including shorts. And before the next Gen Con appeared, we finally got our last Gen Con recording up. And then we are now, our video editor is going to be working on the one we recorded back in January, which means we're finally ramped up again and are going to start to be able to do more of these. So our plan is to have a couple of long ones of these a month and then to have a bunch of shorts coming out from each one of them. So we're getting there basically. And if you're watching us, thank you. And if you're like, these people seem awesome, how do I find more about them? Please sub to our YouTube at GenGMs, and we would be very grateful if you would do that. So how are you, Zach? How's everything in your neck of the woods?
I'm good. I'm geared up for a very busy summer,
Uh,
among which, of course, is the Roleplay by the Bay event that we will be hosting at SFPL.
mhm.
Um, and you can see I have my dog here. I just took him for a walk, so he's napping.
Your
He's in
dog
perfect
is just
prison.
like, oh God.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why his bed is right there, but he loves just laying on the floor.
Yeah, comfy floor.
Um,
I
yeah.
respect it.
So at some point when he hears any noise outside at all, he will perk up and begin barking
I get it.
insanely. So we'll be prepared for that. But for now he's chilling.
I'm
But yeah,
it's
I'm
good.
doing
It's
good.
very peaceful. It's very calming
Yes,
having your
yes.
dog there.
Mhm.
Should we
How are you
talk to the
doing?
folks about roleplay by the I'm good. I'm doing well, thank you. The same
Hmm.
busy summer coming up, including what we'll talk about in a minute, but also my daughter is graduating high school.
Yeah.
So that's
Or
happening.
has graduated or not
No,
quite
not
yet?
yet. Not officially.
Oh,
Will
right.
be
Yeah, still a little
graduating.
bit
I
out.
think it is about 10 days from now, roughly 9, 10 days from now. We'll
Yeah,
be
school
graduating.
ends so late in on the East Coast.
Yeah,
In
well, we had a
California,
lot of
all the
snow
kids
days
just got
this
out.
year. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we had a lot of snow days. I mean, honestly, a
Mm.
lot of the rest of it is half days. And to be honest, she's not going to go to a lot of them because, like, it doesn't.
Hmm.
They're not doing anything at this point. She's taken all of her exams and all this
Yeah.
stuff. But for those who had not watched for a while, she will be taking a gap year, and then she is going to Vassar College, which is
Awesome.
a very, very good liberal arts college out in the Northeast. So we're very proud of her. It's just her vibe. I'm glad that she's taking a gap year so we don't lose her immediately. But she's really, really a great kid. I'm super proud of her. And I mention her here also because she loves D&D stuff and has done some of it herself, including with Zach in the past.
Hmm.
So yeah, so we're excited about that. My youngest just turned 10. So
Mm.
we've been working on that whole business, and yeah. So and then professional projects in various stages of whatever. So, but we're hanging in there. But it is going to be I'm with you. It's going to be a busy summer for sure.
Yeah.
We should talk about Roleplay by the Bay, shouldn't we? Briefly, just what this thing actually is.
Yeah.
I think this will be out. It should be out, he said doubtfully, before that event, although it'll be
Yeah.
close. We'll see. Um,
Hmm.
Regardless, so the idea of we're calling it the first annual because it would be great if this could become a regular thing, but
Hmm.
it's a 1 day event. It is a con that is basically two actual play TTRPG actual play sessions. So in the morning, we will have at least three and possibly up to four or five, maybe somewhere between 3 and 5. I'll know more about that the next day or so. Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation scientists who will be in person with us. My charity event, ArvCon, benefits Damon Runyon. And so, since there are a lot of them out in the Bay Area, we thought, why not have them be part of this? So, they will be here at the San Francisco Public Library. I will interview them a little bit and sort of chat about their research for a few minutes. And then we're going to do a one-shot adventure, which I will run in front of a live audience. Then we'll have a break for lunch. And then when we get back, Zac is going to take members of the teen program that he works with at the San Francisco Public Library and is going to do a one shot for them, again, in front of a hugely enthusiastic audience. So we are going to try to, probably will be able to live stream it in some capacity, but the big thing will be the in-person stuff. And right after this recording is done, we are going to figure out the final details in terms of like tickets and all that sort of good, that jazz. We'll figure that out. But it is going to be on June 27th, Saturday, June 27th, starting at, I believe we said 9 a.m. If I'm not mistaken, was the
It
theory.
will be 10. The library itself doesn't even open until
Oh,
10.
that's right. So 10 a.m. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
So 10 a.m. and yeah, and it's going to run the day. So definitely, if you were in the San Francisco area and if you are watching this before June 27th, 2026, then you should go see it. And if not, you should go, I wonder how it was, and see if you can find recordings of
Yeah.
it and all that. But I'm excited for it. And it's called Role Play by the Bay, a tabletop role playing a TTRPG actual play event, I think is what it's called.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it. How are you feeling about it, Zac? About
Uh, I'm feeling great. I'm narrowing in on some of the final details myself. A lot of it, as we'll discuss, has been up to SFPL's end of their organization, but everything should still be good to go. So I'm excited as we get closer in the weeks to come to put everything together and help to visualize what the day is going to be like.
Mhm.
And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We haven't really had, something I've talked about a little bit is that the Bay Area doesn't really have a lot of tabletop community stuff, like conventions or gatherings or things
Mhm.
like that. There's a
Mhm.
lot of people that play. I'm sure, being a D&D professional in this area, but there's not really like a communal point for people other than game stores.
Mhm.
We used to have Big Bad Con, but who knows what's going on with that
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah.
And aside from that, there are not many other conventions that I know of, although I don't know everything. But yeah, so we're hoping to put together some tabletop storytelling that the Bay Area could really use, and
Yeah.
then of course it's just a great opportunity for the work that I do and for the work that you do, and our relationship as D&D and tabletop professionals, and so and doing it in collaboration, having that like science element to it
Yeah.
with the research scientists. So it should be a great time, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope that it goes well. I think it will. So
I think it will too.
yeah,
I
I'm
have
excited.
You should know that that also my son, who has gotten super into the aforementioned now 10-year-old, has gotten
Mhm.
super into basketball over the last month or
Ooh,
so. And
okay.
so is like, has been very, will we get to meet Steph Curry?
Ah,
And so I was like,
I'll pull some
well,
strings.
we'll see
Okay.
what we can do.
Yeah.
It would be great if like Steph Curry just walks into the actual fun,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey,
I'm here to play D&D.
yeah, but
Yeah,
he's very much like, wait, we're going to be in San Francisco. He
that's
plays on
funny.
a team in the San Francisco. I was like, yes, yes, I can see that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, good to
anyway,
know.
we'll see if that happens. But
Hmm.
yeah, and we'll have a couple of giveaways too. Zac and I will talk a little bit about that because I have a few boxes of things to send Zac's way that will be giveaway items, which we can give away to people who attend and stuff like that. So it'll be a good thing. I think it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's happening, and other than that, fun summers ahead. So,
Hmm.
but right now we have some Gen GMs things to discuss, some topics to get into, I
Yeah.
think.
And I believe I'm going
I think you're
first
up first,
with a
yeah.
question. So, for those speaking of our relationship as D&D and tabletop professionals,
Yeah.
we do a lot of things. I haven't streamed much lately. Maybe that will be changing later this year. But a lot of what I've been doing on the internet has been on your channel, Arvin Eleron. So being on Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks, the D&D Espergenesis fantasy sci-fi campaign that we have
Yep.
going,
Yep.
or the Our Vocalists. where we've been playing Citizen Sleeper 2, which has been really great.
Yeah.
And then this, GenGMs, and probably something else I'm forgetting.
Well, and you
But
ran the D&D, you did the opposite like
I
this time, where
did
you ran the D&D thing again for the
for
ARC
the R
vocalist during the
vocalists.
ARCon
Yeah.
thing, which was great.
hmm
So again, another
So,
really good
oh,
adventure.
yes. So the thing that I am forgetting, which is actually the center point of my question, is that something else that we have been doing together is playing Gloomhaven.
Ah,
And you and I have had on stream, and you and I have had some conversations, mostly on stream while we are playing, about the game system of Gloomhaven and how its mechanics work, and the whole aspect of that you pick two cards, and each card has a top part and a bottom part, and if you pick the top part of one card, you can't pick the top of the other, and the pairing of everything. And
yeah.
we've been playing it for several hours now. So my question is in regards to the fact that we play a lot of D&D, and this podcast is focused on GMing.
hmm
And so my question is mostly centered around what game systems do you think are the best for role playing, and or what game systems do you prefer?
Hmm.
And that in regards of like how crunchy they are or not crunchy. I was having a conversation recently where someone was asking about Pathfinder, and I've actually never played it, but my understanding is that Pathfinder is a bit more mechanically complicated than D&D
It is more
is.
crunchy, yeah, because it's based on
Um,
3.5,
right.
which itself initially,
Was more
which
crunchy.
itself was more crunchy, yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
So there's that, and then I know that Gloomhaven isn't really a system that you get GM'd in, although I think there is a mode to do that or something.
Yeah.
Um, but us playing the game has made me think about, and then also playing Citizen Sleeper, and the uh, let's see, the dice system that they use. Do you know what that
Well,
is? Power,
it's heavily influenced by Blades in the Dark.
right? Yeah, the Blades in
Um,
the Dark
so heavily
kind of
influenced
system.
by, yeah, which is just the Forged in the Dark system is
Yeah,
what it's called. I always get
yeah.
it mixed up with Powered by the Apocalypse, but
That's
that's another
exact.
one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
no,
was
but
gonna
it's
say too.
Forged in the Dark.
I
Yeah,
I get them all mixed up too.
yeah.
I haven't had much of an opportunity lately to try other system. It's been a lot of D&D for me lately. But yeah, would you say I'd say maybe talking a bit about our play of Gloomhaven and how a system like that, like the card system, might work out mechanically for role play. But
hmm
then I suppose the question is mostly when it comes to role play, do you feel like D&D really is kind of the standard and probably the best system for telling a story, or are there other systems that you wish you played more in regards to storytelling?
We've so we've decided to leap directly into the hornet's nest of just like,
Yeah. Well,
you know,
look,
the
I
best
mean,
system. No, no, I'm kidding.
yeah, the best system as
The best
endorsed by
system.
the Gen
No,
G.
it's a good question. So I actually was thinking, I thought about this a fair bit recently because I've been doing a lot of GMing of Dragonbane, which is originally a Swedish system that's been updated by Free League. And I've been having a blast with it, honestly. And there are a couple things that I've been thinking about in terms of sort of, in that case, especially the leveling system that I think is really neat. The idea of it is that if you so you have all these different skills that have stats, which is very similar to what D&D does, but at the end of a session you get asked a series of questions about did you overcome an obstacle without using force? Did you give into your personality weakness?
Interesting.
Did you participate? There's always you always get at least one because there's did you participate in the game session? So you always
Right.
have at least one. And for every one of these that you say yes to, you mark one of the skills on your sheet. And if you get what's called a demon, which Dragonbane reverses it, so you want to roll low. And if you roll high, the higher you roll, the worse it is. So if you get a natural 20, that is called a demon, and that's like a critical fail
Oh.
essentially. Whereas a 1 is a dragon, and that's a critical success.
Mm.
Either a dragon or a demon, you mark that skill automatically, like during play. And
Mm.
then after the game session's over, you then roll for each of those. And if you roll over the skill number that you currently possess, then that permanent number advances. So if your skill is
Oh.
10, right, and you roll and you get a 12, which means in the game you would have failed, then the 10 goes up to an 11, and that becomes your default skill. So you don't
Oh.
actually have, I'm level 2, I'm level 3. All of your skills are going up at different times, and because
Interesting.
because you get to choose, with the exception of if you roll a dragon or demon, you have to mark that skill. But if
Hmm.
you, at the end of the game, when you're answering the session, when you're answering those questions, you can actually mark whichever ones that you like based on the number you have. So if you have like two yeses, you can mark any two skills that you want to see if you can advance. And so it really does feel a little bit, almost a little bit like the Skyrim system of sort of leveling based on the skills you're using or trying
Yeah.
to use that. I love this system so much. Like
Mm,
it's so much more of a, it feels very much like something which puts more emphasis on what you do in each given session. It
mm,
feels, therefore, like advancement is consistent. And it feels like it's not sort of suddenly I am fully more capable in the following five ways, as
yeah.
opposed to I'm actually more capable in this because I've been trying to use it more or use it.
Hmm.
And there's a natural slowing mechanism there, right? Because obviously, if you're like, I'm just going to keep pumping up, acrobatics. Well, if
Right.
you get acrobatics to a certain level, it gets harder and harder to level it because you
Yes.
have to get over that number. It
Yeah.
also means, by the way, that sometimes you will get nothing that will level, but that's unusual. Usually, if you you'll get one or two pretty much that will level based on the skills you're trying for, and it also encourages you to do more of those things. So when it's like, did you overcome an obstacle without using force? You're encouraged to do that then, right? Because that way you're more likely to get another thing you can answer yes to and have another skill that you mark. Did you give into your personality weakness? That encourages good role play. There's another part of that, by the way, which is that if you work against it and you literally say you work against your weakness, then what you do is you mark two skills, but then that weakness is gone and you cannot have a weakness the next session. The session after that, you can choose a new weakness if you wish that's
Wow.
like narratively appropriate. So, anyway, sorry about that long-winded digression, but the
No,
point
I
is
like
I've
this.
really been
Cool.
enjoying Dragonbane quite a bit in terms of the way that works. But the question that you asked me is interesting because what you really were focusing on, I think, was about the role-playing element of it, like the
Hmm.
storytelling element of it. So the default answer for a lot of things that you hear now is if you love D&D, it is D&D is still the best and everyone else is just jealous because they don't have the best system. And if you're not a D&D person, and I'm talking about the stereotypical versions of this, right? And then
Yeah.
if you're not a D&D person, it's anything is better than D&D. D&D is just, a war game with a bunch of like, guess with a bunch of like other mechanics bolted on, but it's really just a
Hmm.
war game. I my favorite game is D&D because I think every time I hear people complain about D&D, what they're really complaining about in almost every practical example I've ever heard, literally, is my GM did something dumb. And like if you have a bad GM doing bad things, yes, the game is not going to come across well to you, but that's not usually a fault of the system. However, I will admit that having had a chance over the last, I would say, in particular, 6 to 7 years, to be able to play more and different kinds of games, that I have come to respect and admire a lot of other systems and what they're trying to do. So I just mentioned Dragonbane. I think the Blades in the Dark system is actually quite good at being able to give you a chance to tell good stories. It's one of those things that they talk about as being kind of narrative forward. Um, and in fact, my Greyshade game, which is going to be coming out based on my Greyshade World, which you saw in our last Gen Con session being demoed,
Yeah.
that game has a lot of both that has D&D elements, but it also has a lot of sort of Blades in the Dark-ish style elements because Brandon, the designer, Brandon O'Brien, is a huge Blades fan. And like that's the game that's probably the favorite game, his favorite game, I would say, in the tabletop space.
Yeah.
And I can see why. I mean, there's a lot to sort of admire about it. Being able to mark stress, in Dragonbane, they call this pushing a roll, but being able to mark stress where you basically can roll again, or you get a bonus to your roll means that you can manipulate the dice a little bit more. But as you've discovered in Citizen Sleeper 2, if you push too much, you end up building up stress and it has all of these downstream effects that you
Yeah.
do not want.
It
So
gets
it's
real
like
bad.
it gets real bad. And it's like very early on, it feels like, like I'll just take a stress. Like, what's the big deal? And then you feel like
Just like
all
in
of a
real life.
yeah, it's just sort of like, like, I can do another stress. I can stop anytime I want, and you like it like ramps up until you're like, oh my God, there's all of these negative effects to it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that in that way, Blades does a lot of things well. The Powered by the Apocalypse ones does a lot of things well. I've had a chance to look at we talked about the Espergenesis system. The Beowulf system, which is based on 5e but has a lot of its own mechanics, allows for a lot of really great role play, but maybe that's cheating because it's specifically, it's 5e driven. I think in the end that for comfort reasons, and also because I think that it has the broadest possible scale, I think that Dungeons and Dragons does the most difficult part of what a role playing game needs to do, and that is the combat system. Like the combat system
Mm,
is extremely, um, I think, well conceived. It's broken down accurately. You do have to be able to know how to run it well if you're a GM, because obviously it can drag and it can slow things down, and everybody has
yes.
the story of like the 5 hour combats and all that, and
Yeah.
that's true. But I also think that because of the way that it does it, it also leads to a lot of narratively epic combats in which a lot of things that we see of as on a movie screen might be just like everything moving too quickly for anyone to notice. When you break it down into these 6 second increments, right, and you see what each person is doing, you really understand like the sort of thoughts that go into these various maneuvers, and that's pretty cool. And I think that having something mechanically locked down like that then makes it possible for you to do the narrative fiction forward stuff without being bogged down by the rules. My problem with a lot of other systems that claim to be story forward or narrative forward or fiction first, the problem with that to me is that they end up trying to either make it so loosey goosey that you're basically just doing improv, which
Yeah.
like that's fine, but like why do I need dice for that? Like I could just get together with my friends, we could just do improv, if we
Yeah.
wanted to, or use like a set of cards with prompts on them, like if we
Hmm.
wanted to. Or it becomes super mechanically crunchy, and they sort of try to make crunchy the experience of role play,
Yeah.
which
Roll to breathe.
yeah, which feels like, which feels very odd to me. And I really do not want to get into like a step into it in this one, because I have a couple of very good friends who work in this system. So I don't want to bash on Daggerheart here. But my experience, and I don't know how you feel about this, but my experience having read quite a bit of Daggerheart and watched some of it being played, I will admit I have not played or GM'd it myself. So this is an outsider's perspective, but is that it almost feels a little forced to me. The idea of having to keep in your mind that, for example, in Daggerheart, you can basically just take your turn. You could just take an action forever. Essentially, you can take multiple actions. But then, because of this hope and fear mechanic, where you gain hope or you gain fear, and if the DM gains fear, this is very much like Talisman Adventures, which I played as well, which I've GM'd. If you get fear, then you can use that fear to, quote, take the spotlight back. I don't know if that's the actual terminology, but something like that. And then the party as a whole can then take hope and use hope to get the spotlight back as well. And they can do that for individual characters. The problem for me is that especially with groups that don't know each other really well, the prospect of going to a conference or a convention and being like, all right, we've never met each other. All right, Joe, it's time for you to take over. Like, I can imagine Joe being the kind of person who would love to take over and never let anybody else talk. Or I could imagine Joe being someone who's kind of late, introverted and doesn't likes to play, but doesn't really know and is kind of awkward about when to step in. And so you'd say, well, then the GM can solve that problem. Yes, but the GM could have done that in D&D also. So then what are we solving, So in terms of story forward stuff, I often find that the things that are attempting to, quote, solve the problems of D&D are pointing things at things which I don't think are problems in D&D, or if they are, I don't think you solve them by being more mechanically crunchy. So I do think that there's a lot of value in other systems. I've learned a lot from them. I like playing in a lot of these other systems too. As I say, I really enjoy Blades as a player. I don't think I would enjoy it nearly as much as a GM, because I think it's really hardcore on the brain about it. In a lot of ways, I think it's more work for the GM for a variety of reasons we can get into at some other point. But and as I said, I love playing Dragonbane. I love doing Talisman Adventures when I was GMing that. I loved being able to, dip my toe into Powered by the Apocalypse stuff and whatever. Wilderness of Mirrors, I've talked about on the show before by John Wick, is a really great, very free flowing thing, which works really well for like spy and intrigue type stuff. But again, that's very close to improv, and it's almost good for sort of more informal environments rather than we're really running a full campaign. So I think that D&D in the end, I do still think probably works the best for role play in the tabletop space, not because it does a great job mechanically with role play, but because it does a great job mechanically with the stuff that it needs to, i.e., combat, skill checks, things like that, and then sort of gets the hell out of the way of the role play, which I think at base has to be among players and with the GM. And again, I'm sure this gets out there and people are going to be like, that's absolutely wrong because of blah, blah, blah. I understand everyone has different opinions and I respect all of those, but for me, I don't think the things that I think are attempting to solve D&D's problems do that, because I don't know that they're problems in the first place, and I don't know that we need more systems to mechanically to solve the issue of how we do better role play. That feels to me like something that's more about building trust among the players, even in GM-less systems, building trust among the players, and it's much less about which dice you roll at one time. So that's my
I
long-winded
think,
answer
yeah,
to
I
that.
feel much the same way. I think hearing you talk about it, it makes me think that I I feel like some groups are going to be better at some things and some groups are going to be better at other things.
Right.
And so, you know, I think Daggerheart, as an example, being designed by Critical Role, by these amazing voice actors, performers that are
Totally.
super role play and improv and performance heavy that have known each other for a long time. This is a something that has been said, which is that it's perfect for like streaming and for Critical Role.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten the opportunity to play Daggerheart as much, but in the times that I have run or play it, the uh, sort of like impromptu initiative of characters taking turns. I think with a group of people that don't know each other, or if you have a bad dynamic, then yeah, just like any aspect of D&D as well, it can go
Of course.
wrong.
For
I
sure.
mean, in D&D, at least you have the initiative order that is keeping you
This is
locked in
what I mean. Like
pace.
you have a
You know,
mechanic to deal with that. You know what I mean?
right?
Whereas this doesn't, this sort of takes away the mechanic from precisely the areas that I think the mechanics would help.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
The alternative that I've actually used before in Daggerheart and that I've seen used is that to get around the same person just taking turns over and over and over, that a certain amount of like action tokens are allotted to
Right. I know
each
they give that as
character.
an optional rule. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I haven't watched many of Critical Role's Daggerheart actual plays.
Mhm.
So I don't know what combat options that they've tended to use if they've done the impromptu games, because then you end up with some people who basically do nothing in the combat or take one turn and then like the glass cannon or the min-maxed character takes all
Right.
the turns.
And
And you
can I
don't
and can I
you
ask?
don't want
Sorry to
that.
interrupt, but I want to ask you a
Hmm.
question about that quickly. Like,
Yeah.
why do you think that's an optional rule? Like why is that action token thing, which is something they add in there? Because I can already hear the people, but that's we solve for that by doing this. But
Right.
then why do you start without that as the sort
Right.
of default and have
Yeah.
the option be you can also not use that if you want? Like it feels like the one that's the default rule is the
Hmm.
one you're encouraging people to go towards. And
Right.
I'm not sure why you would encourage that as the default, given
Yeah.
what we just discussed,
I feel like they're on the spectrum of taking turns in combat. There's hard and fast initiative of this is the order and it will remain the order for the rest
Yes.
of combat versus the other side of the spectrum, which I feel like Daggerheart is at, which is in its base form, which is you may take turns in any order until the GM interrupts you through the use of fear. Um, and then I think the middle ground is that token system. So I'm not sure. I only have worked with or spoken with the game designers a couple times. They're great, but I think maybe in their defense, it's an aspect of offering up this alternative on the far other side of the spectrum, and for encouraging people to try it. But yeah, I mean, in my personal preference, they probably should have swapped it. Like here's the default, which is at the action tokens. Here's an optional rule. You can just get rid of those action tokens and let anyone take any turn at any time.
Exactly.
You know,
And
but
I should talk. My friend Mike Underwood is was one of the design consultants and has Born of Hope and some new like supplements that have come out that are doing very well. And I should ask them what, their view is on this and specifically,
mhm,
because I mean, I feel, I'm by no means an expert about it, but I have seen I've seen quite a bit of it being played and have, read about it, quite a bit of it. And it just, that seems like an example of something that was like, is that just so can be like, see, we're not D&D because we're doing this, because like
right.
I don't see the initiative system as a problem. Like, for example, one of the things that people say is they're like, well, but then it's just, as you said before, like it's locked in. Yeah, except you can switch your initiative order. Like after return, you can say, I'm going to drop down to after so and so, and that becomes your new initiative order. Like
Mm,
if you're the second highest initiative, but you decide it would be better for you to be the fifth highest initiative, starting in the next turn, in terms of the players, you can just do that. Like you
yeah.
could just change that.
I'm not sure
And
that that's a
so
rule as written anymore, actually,
yeah, about even being able to switch
about
over.
dropping, like you can ready your turn or ready an action and
Hmm.
then, save your action. But
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you can just drop initiative and then come back at a different time.
I thought you
I know
could
we do it all
switch.
the time, and that's how I do it too. But
Yeah, I mean
um,
maybe that's, jeez,
I might be wrong.
we
We are on, just after a new edition has been published that even I'm still refreshing new rules on. I don't even know where exactly that was presented in the original rules too. But um,
I'm
shall we
actually
do a
just
deep
quickly
deep dive? Editor, cut this part out so
yeah,
we
yeah,
can find
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Let's find the rule.
No, I know, I
You've
know, I know.
we've activated both of the GMs.
I'm very curious about that because
Yeah, here.
okay, anyway, sorry, but you go on. I didn't mean
Mhm.
to derail.
Oh, you're good.
Um uh yeah,
Let's
updates
see.
was prize swap. Yeah, okay. Well, um I will take a look and see.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
may
we'll
be
return to this one.
I'll return to that. Regardless, even if, so if I apologize in advance if I'm wrong about that then, because it is true that I'm just
Yeah.
now
I
starting to
mean,
get into
most
2024
GMs,
rules.
I feel like,
Um
allow the delay of a turn,
yeah.
but
I guess the point is right. If we're just comparing rules as written, and if it turns out I'm wrong, because that in 2014 was different, right? But I'm just starting to pull in 2024 rules
yeah.
now, so I might be wrong about that. Anyway, regardless, though, you could always hold an action. You could
Hmm.
always it's much more flexible, at least on the party side,
Yeah.
than it would be on the monster side, and it's always been more flexible than than it's been assumed. Um, so I don't know. But again, it's one of those things where like, is it a problem that needs to be solved? And if the problem is just, well, it makes things too rigid, too slow. Because in my
Yeah.
experience, if people don't exactly know what order they want to go in and everyone is kind of looking at each other awkwardly, I don't see how that speeds anything up. And so I don't know. It's just something that makes me wonder a little bit about what exactly are the problems that are being solved, especially kind of in a role play context.
Just looking it up really quick.
Yeah,
In even back in 2014 fifth edition, at least just a cursory Google search, this is not deep dive, that there is no hard and fast, there is no rules as written about delaying initiative, actually,
right.
even
So
in
there were
2014.
none. Yeah. So pretty much. So the point being that right. In other words, the point was it was never locked in the same way. Like right. Like the point is you could switch it up. Right. The idea is not.
No, what I'm saying is that there was no rule as written that you could delay your initiative. The idea was that an initiative was locked in every turn
And that you couldn't change it.
and that you couldn't change it.
I don't know any. Okay. I do not know a single DM
Yeah,
that did
we
that
all
at
do
all.
that all the time. But
I mean, yeah.
either
Um,
way, I
yeah,
think,
that's interesting. I mean, like,
mhm,
yeah, that's interesting. I have never played it that way,
yeah,
ever. But again, and so I guess the argument would be, so you could always, I don't want to be, I didn't want to be lazy and go, well, you could just always house rule it. I
mhm,
understand that if you can house rule everything, then you can just, again,
make a new game.
play improv with your friends. So I
Yeah.
get that we're comparing rules as written, but,
Mhm.
um, I don't know. It just feels to me like I feel like the so-called, sense of being imprisoned by the rules or being like locked in place or like they can't maneuver outside of the rules, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like that's how it actually operated in
And it
practice.
depends on, yeah, I think what we've discovered too is that it depends on your GM, and the GM also is affected by the culture of gaming if they're involved in it.
Right.
And so, um, yeah, I think it depends on the GM and on the play group. I think a lot of groups were very focused on playing the game rules as written, because there needs to be some standard.
Yeah.
But
There's got to be some
ultimately,
structure.
even when it comes to D&D, we change what are these rules anyway, if not written by some other random person that you've probably never met from. And even D&D itself was made by two guys in a basement in 1974,
Yeah.
so, which is great, that's wonderful, that's fine, but also, to a certain point too, how much are we allowing the rules as written by these other people that you'll probably never meet dictate the storytelling that you're doing at your table?
Right.
So yeah, I think I find that, it's going to depend on the group and what, when you bring this unique group of people together, what they're interested in. If they're interested in something more crunchy or in initiatives with order or not, and that comes down to trying a lot of different things too. Trying systems like Daggerheart, like rules as written D&D, I suppose. Um, but ultimately, I think my final answer to the question too would be that I think a lot of these systems do different things great and other things not so much, but
Right.
all of it depends on the group and what their interests are. There are going to be some groups that love to do, personally, I actually love tracking every arrow that I fire from my bows.
Yeah.
I don't often meet people that are that level of dedicated, because then to me, it's one of those things where it's like, I just have infinite arrows, then my resources don't matter, or like being encumbered or not. I will actually go into D&D Beyond, for example, and turn on the setting to count
Oh, will you really?
gold towards my
Yeah.
backpack weight, which is not a setting by default.
Yeah, the
Um,
encumbrance thing that
yeah.
I cannot get on the train with the encumbrance thing because it's such a pain to
um,
track. But
yeah,
that's fine though. Like, but that's an example, right? That it feels like these are sort of an a la carte, somewhat sort of set up anyway in terms of what you allow. Like,
yeah,
my critical rules, right, are different.
right.
Instead of, you get a natural 20, and
Hmm.
so that's a critical hit, and so you roll an additional 1D, whatever the case may be. I'm
Yeah,
just like, that's max damage, right?
yeah,
And there were earlier editions in which it was max damage, and then they changed that later on, and it's also max damage for the monster.
right.
For the enemy that you're fighting, and so you got to
Hmm.
think about that too. That just happens to be my house rule.
Yeah,
And I think it works pretty well. And I can always like modify and shape it if I have to.
yeah,
But again, yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like, is is this thing something which is getting in the way of your enjoyment? Is that something which the system fundamentally prevents?
right,
And like it just doesn't allow you to do it. Um, and I don't know. I mean, I think that you could make very many arguments. Certainly, for example, early first edition D&D used this sort of Vancian, named after an author who did this system,
oh,
where a wizard, has a spell, learns a spell, and at first level or whatever it is, they have basically like one spell.
mm,
And then when they use it, they're done for the day. Like basically they're
mm,
down to just throwing darts or a dagger at somebody, and they can't get very close because they're squishy, and
yeah,
then obviously later on they get much more powerful, but at least early on, there's not a lot going on there. That's not a super fun, way to run something for a few levels. Like that obviously needed to be modified a bit. And so they added different classes. They added the sorcerer, they added cantrips, they added these spells that are you can always be using so that it's not the case that you just run out of spells. And they made them functional. Like they gave you spells that are, Ray of Frost is not a terrible spell. There are things that have some value to them that you can still cast. So I think we've made adjustments over time. Like earlier editions, I don't think handled this as well as they might have, but I feel like they've addressed a lot of those things too. Um, than what they had at the very beginning. I think they have made progress, maybe because they got pushed by these other systems, quite honestly.
yeah.
Maybe that's the case. Because to go back to your Gloomhaven case,
Mhm.
um, you and I have both complained about the fact that it does feel sometimes like it's so brain burny because there's so much,
Yeah.
you know,
Like the game is working against you
yeah, there's so
sometimes.
many if then statements where you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about the 65th if, then, like after a while you're like, oh my God, and that does feel like you're beginning to weigh down what is supposed to be adventurous experience, and it's now
Yeah.
really down to like, no, did you remember to, it's like you're doing a math spreadsheet,
Yeah.
right?
Although on the
There's
flip
something
side of
close.
that, the experiencing that friction in the game and then still finding ways to succeed at it
Oh
are
yeah,
makes it all the more satisfying.
very
It's almost like we
satisfying.
have
Yeah.
to more rails that are put up around us, and then yet we are still able to be creative and successful within those rails.
Yes.
Almost,
But
I
that
like
does
that.
feel a little puzzly though, right? Puzzle based and does
Hmm.
not to me. I mean, I don't know about you. Like we do our best, but I don't think there's a lot of role play going on
Oh
in
no,
Gloomhaven games,
yeah,
right?
no.
Because it's so
It's
mechanically
very,
like,
yeah, it's full combat, video
yeah.
gamey sort of,
Um,
yeah.
and so, like there's a Lord of the Rings card game that I have back there, a collectible card game, and I love Lord of the Rings. There was a stage where like it's dripping with lore and theme and like all the
Hmm.
stuff that I love, but like it's so mechanically dense that after a while I'm just kind of like, I don't want to take the time to get to your lore because it's just so much brain burning.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Um,
understand how to play the game. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't even know, like, really was Aragorn like, okay, place the following angle 6 ways before you do make the sword swing? It just
Yeah.
so so it's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah.
So you would say, I mean, again, I put that same question back to you quickly, like,
Mhm.
do you think D&D, so your argument, you would say that you think D&D does do the best in those systems from your experience? Is there something that would like that you could imagine that would change it and make it more amenable to storytelling, role playing,
Um,
getting the
I
GM out of the way, or things
yeah.
like that?
Um, I mean the modern game, uh, there's a lot that is great about 2024 D&D,
Hmm.
5e, 5.5, or whatever we want to call it. There's a lot that I think in the day and age of technology and the internet and D&D Beyond and all that stuff and Roll20 and people playing online. I mean, you and I almost exclusively play online together. Um, I feel like there's some more that could be done to make online D&D more accessible,
Yeah.
in for GMing and for DMing, or
Yes.
sorry, GMing and for players,
Yes.
um, in terms of like character sheets or like the new character sheet for the 2024 version. I disdain very strongly.
Yeah.
It almost necessitates playing on D&D Beyond now. Um, which if you do, you have a great experience. But if you try to play 2024 D&D in person, you need to make your own character sheets. It's just there's no way you can fit all the information that you have now. So just little things like that. I feel like D&D is at where it's at. You know, has the cultural currency. It's very popular, despite any number of shortfallings. And so I'm excited to play more indie games and to get more in the realm of things that are not D&D in that regard. But
Hmm.
I feel like D&D does a damn good job putting everything together, and especially to be owned by the same company that is producing Magic: The Gathering as well, which is continuing to grow in its own way in the realm of storytelling through cards,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way, and bringing in these universes, that we haven't had a way to keep alive. This is a tangent on Magic, but in the regards to something that Magic is doing is they're doing all these universes beyond, where they're bringing in other IPs. The joke is that Magic: The Gathering is becoming the Fortnite of card games, where it's like you can play as My Little Pony in Magic: The Gathering, and then be playing across from Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider, Kratos from God of War,
Yeah. Yeah.
and SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Every card I said is actually a Magic card.
Yep.
So
I've been playing Magic the Gathering Forge, and you run into a bunch of those things where
yes,
it's like, I don't know how thematic it all is. It's like Unmatched, the board games back there, does a lot of the same idea where you have all these wildly different universes and it's intentionally asymmetrical, but it
yeah,
does make it sure like it's magic and tech and science and whatever the
yeah,
gathering. Like it's a lot of different stuff. That's
yeah.
true.
I've found that for me though, that there's a lot of people, there are a lot of opinions about Universes Beyond, and there are improvements that I wish would be made to the system. I wish there was more in-universe stuff, and not fully, the embrace of Universes Beyond, where now we have more sets that have been set in New York than we have had in Ravnica, for example,
Mm,
um, in recent years. But something that is good is that for me, some of the IPs that have been touched on are ones that have not been reimagined or revisited since they came out themselves. And for example, when the Final Fantasy set came out, when you are able to sit down and replay your favorite Final Fantasy character that has not been seen since Final Fantasy 7 or 8 or 9. I mean, maybe Final Fantasy 7 is a bad example because that beautiful, wonderful remaster, remake, rebirth, all that stuff is coming out. You can replay those characters and it's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
But for me, Final Fantasy 12, Balthier and Fran and Van and
Oh wow,
Penelo
yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
those characters
yeah.
have not, it's been almost 20 years pretty much since those characters have been in anything. And then suddenly now you have new art for, the main characters from your favorite game, or,
Well,
telling new stories with Kratos, I mean, but again, that's an example of there's new God of War stuff coming out. Anyway, that all to say, I'm appreciating now the power of these games like D&D, like Magic, Daggerheart, Gloomhaven, the stories that happen not just in the stories that are written by the people that make the games,
mhm.
but then now the stories, once it's handed to you at the table, in some cases, I'm not sure it matters what system you play as long as the mechanics of it give you a fair level of challenge.
Right,
We've talked about that with Gloomhaven,
right.
and then give you a good time between you and the friends that you're playing it with. So um, yeah. So anyway, I think D&D is in a good spot on as a whole, I would say. And there are some great people that are working towards improving many of the aspects of D&D. But yeah, I'm excited for more attention and more focus to come to some other tabletop games and indie stuff. And
For sure.
um,
And I think it
oh
needs
yeah,
to be said that like other the indie games as we've talked about before have really pushed, D&D and really pushed like fifth edition, especially at least the 2014 version, I think has been exceedingly pushed by other systems that were sort of like, you know, infringing a little bit where people were really starting to kind of walk over the line where I think there was some sense of we need to kind of restore this
yeah,
to a more, a more amenable to role play system, and did a lot of that. So this is melding into my question to you. So
great.
I think this will sort of tie in nicely because I want
Hmm.
to ask about, um, I want to talk about edition and then session reassessment. And what I mean by that is, when do you, as a DM or a GM, decide this system isn't working, or this session isn't working, or this campaign isn't working?
Mm.
Because I was thinking about the idea of, I played the Beowulf system with my good friend Tari Tunes, and played a little bit with Tren Sparks, who's that Zach and I both know, and Tren played it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 sessions, and then was like, uh, Greg, I always love playing with you, played with you a lot of games. I'm not feeling this. Like he didn't like the system. He didn't like sort of the way that it handed. It was quite dour, and that's true. I mean, like the Beowulf stories themselves are quite dour, frankly. And the follower system was a little bit hard for him to kind of grok. And it was sort of hard for him to know how to insert he's a very good role player, and sort of inserting himself into the role play when it's just being covered by, part of that's a duet system of him and me. But it was also, we'd done other stuff like that before in other systems, including D&D, but this just didn't quite click for him. And so after a few sessions, we said, okay, I was already playing with him and alternating with Tari, and then he stepped to the side and I did the rest of the adventures with Tari, and we played for another, I don't know, year and a half or so, something like that, maybe close to 2 years. And then I was like, yeah, I think this has run its course. And we sort of, like wound it down and then went on to Dragonbane, which was again a group system that we were all playing together. We've been having a blast with that. But I guess my question is then, we assessed that based upon the fact that he just wasn't, in quotes, having a good time. And I
Yeah.
then later on assessed that it was time to move on because I felt like we told the adventures that we wanted to tell. I felt like we had spent enough time in a very fun but also very dour universe that where there's a lot of like kind of dark fatalism about the world and about, you know, one's place in it. I thought we had sort of stretched our wings as much as we could within that sky.
Yeah.
And so my question to you is when do you, and I'm curious about answers to all of these, when do you decide I'm not digging this edition, I want to go to another edition, or I'm not
Mhm.
digging this game that I tried and I really want to try some other system, or I'm not digging this campaign that I set up and like I need to kind of shift. Obviously you base it a little bit on what the players are telling you, but I also wonder if you have your own sixth sense, spidey sense about when something is not kind of clicking for you and what you do in that instance.
Yeah. I have played D&D 2014, 2024. I've played Vampire the Masquerade. I have done a little bit of Daggerheart. We've played Alien, the cinematic
Yep.
universe, the role-playing game.
Yep.
As per Genesis, let's see, I've done Cyberpunk before on Made Gaming. All these different game systems, and in my experiences, the campaigns that have ended, just personally for me, and I'll have more to talk on this, but an immediate answer to your question is that the games or campaigns or sessions that have ended have always been not necessarily because we tried a system or an edition or a style of campaign and then it didn't work. It was more that real life got in the way.
Mm,
In most cases, and real life meaning scheduling
scheduling the final boss. Yes.
or a disagreement between the players personally,
Ah, yeah.
which was independent of the game system. That is how pretty much every campaign that has ended prematurely or even maturely. In my case, you know, either the story runs its course naturally, or you know, we just kind of get. I feel like most. Oh, there's a. You can hear the motorcycle revving
Oh, yeah.
outside, having a great time. Um, most of the stories, campaigns, sessions, and stuff that have ended have been due to these scheduling things or the group coming to some disagreement or some big falling out or something
Yep.
like that. You know, we've all had or horror stories of or just bad GMing or something like that, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I haven't had too many situations where we tried something and then realized that the problem was the system or the campaign and then stopped that and then started something else. Usually we don't get that far.
Yeah.
usually
It just
usually we get stopped by
yeah.
scheduling
Oh, yeah.
or something, you know.
Yeah.
So in my limited experience of that, I mean, this is a glimmer of hope then, you know, that almost every time when we've tried D&D or Daggerheart or Cyberpunk, like we find a natural endpoint. And I can't say that that almost any time I've played any of these systems that we've stopped because we didn't like the system. Which I guess is a testament in my personal experience to this aspect of, you know, it comes down to ultimately what caused those campaigns to end, which is the people playing it. If the people playing it are committed to each other and their relationship with each other is good, you know, and I've played Fallout. You know, yeah, every single time it's always been real life scheduling. You know, the campaign comes to a natural arc close, and then we all are too busy. You know,
Right.
so yeah, but the systems, I'm always generally able to find joy in almost any system that I play. Some systems I do enjoy more than others, but then even that has some to do with the other players
Hmm.
and the characters that they played and how I felt like I was treated or not, the GMing of the GM.
Hmm.
You know, I think it is always depended less on the system and more on the people for me. You
That's
know,
interesting.
if I'm happy around the people that I'm playing with, I find that I don't really care much what system I'm playing. And in fact, I'm excited to try things that I haven't tried before, to try Cyberpunk, to try Alien, to try Esper Genesis, whatever, as long as I'm
Right.
having a good time with the people around the table. Um, there's been rare cases where I've had to decide where we've decided like, oh yeah, this system's not working for us, so let's move to a different system. You know, the closest I've gotten to that is a campaign that, or I mean, a few times in different campaigns that have like kind of teetered and been like wobbling plates almost about to fall.
I was thinking about a campaign
Um,
you told me about of
yeah,
yours that sort of had this happen.
and that campaign finished. That was my longest stand running one ever. And for the most part, it was a positive experience. But there were some rocky times where that group that I was GMing um, had some fallings out with each other, and with me disagreements about GMing and player to player dynamics and all this sort of stuff. But again, that all came down to I feel like that had very little to do with the system we were playing.
I see.
Um, it had some to do with the contents of the campaign. I feel like what in regards to GMing, I guess actually a little yellow flag to wave out for some GMs out there for my learned experience is keeping in mind, there are times when I've GM'd when I've been very excited about a character concept that one player has made that makes it very easy for me to GM for their
Yep.
character or for
Yep.
me to come up with cool backstory interaction for their character.
Yep.
Um, versus you might have another player who has created nothing for their backstory, or their backstory is hidden, or then there are aspects where it's like without learning from experience, you've naturally set yourself up for one player to have a worse time playing the game.
Hmm.
Um, and so that is just one thing to keep in mind of like, I've even now to this day, I have to get through to new players that are constantly trying to play a character who has amnesia and doesn't remember their past and is just a completely blank slate. Can be done well. Most of the time, though, it just leads to aimlessness. And aimlessness not on behalf of the player and also for the GM. The GM doesn't know how to draw on anything to entertain
Totally.
you to so those are the times when I've struggled with campaigns and with stories. It had very little to do with the system. It had more to do with how I was running the system or interacting with the players. But yeah, so yeah, kind of a roundabout answer to your
Yeah. No. No.
question. But
That
yeah,
that
I've
works. Yeah.
there have been very few like even in video gaming. It's like I prefer like Baldur's Gate 3 system, which is just D&D actually, to something like Gloomhaven, but I still enjoy Gloomhaven quite a bit, and it's very satisfying when we're able to. Oh yeah, is that right? Is it very satisfying?
How
Yes.
satisfying is it?
Come here. He's like, my other dad is home, which is my dad.
Right.
Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm just supposed to stand here. He's good. Um, but no, I enjoy Gloomhaven enough, and that's partially because I'm playing it with you,
Hmm.
and then also that I don't dislike it more than I like it. And when we do something cool in the game, it feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But there are like little things that I don't like about the system. And if you had to ask me, what game would you prefer to play most often in your time for gaming? We'd all choose certain ones, if we
Totally.
had to choose.
Totally.
But yeah, for me, it's always been less about the system. I'm always willing to give a system a try. Um, I don't tend to like super crunchy systems. I bought this is not a well, I shouldn't even mention it. I was gonna say this is not a dig on them. I literally haven't tried the game. I just skimmed it. But there's a game that I bought because the name of the game was just so enticing and so evocative, and it seemed like it would be perfect for kids. Um,
Man,
and
now I'm so curious to find out what
yeah,
that actually is.
and I bought it and I opened it up and it is one of the crunchiest RPGs I've ever skimmed. Like you read it and it's like, all right, you have 19 skills and 19. I'm like, you chose that name for your game, which
Wow.
is like it's basically yeah. So that certain conditions like that where it's like I haven't tried that game to this day. I'm literally looking at it on my shelf because it's the name got me hooked me, but then I opened it up and then it seems like it's too complicated to play, so anyway.
I was thinking about like, because I played also GM'd in this game called Covert Ops, and I had a chance to play. I got this last time, No Thank You Evil, which is from Monte Cook Games, and that's kind of a streamlined version of the Cipher system that they use for Numenera and stuff like that. And that is built for kids, and I think does a lot of things pretty well. Um, and it's interesting to see sort of a streamlined thing of a system that's built for something else. and to see whether or not that works or whether it's like trying to jam two systems together. Like one of the things I wonder about with Daggerheart is whether Daggerheart isn't just trying a little bit to be all things to all people. Like they know they didn't want to be a full out like Wilderness of Mirrors, the example where it's very few rules. Like Wilderness of Mirrors has like I think a 10-page rule book. Like it's very, very bare bones, very minimalist, right? And so there's that. Or there's this system that is in some ways even I don't know if I'd say more crunchy, but I mean has a lot of mechanics covering things that are sort of just kind of you would just do this in a discussion, like this could have been an email, right? Like why is this working in this way? And that's
You
just
don't
a
want to say
function.
that about a
I,
tabletop game.
yeah, yeah,
This
no,
could have
no,
been an
like
email.
it's like it's like what are we doing here? Like why? And that is something that I think is very difficult to sort of get across. And it's almost like they're like, well, we know people like crunchy mechanics, some people, but we also know a lot of people like fiction first, and so we're gonna have fiction first crunchy mechanics. And it's like, well, I okay, but I don't know that that really works.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
very hard to design games.
it's hard to sort of yeah oh yeah and so thinking about those becomes sort of a difficult thing, but yeah, I think the one thing I wanted to sort of highlight about your answer in
Yeah, I want
particular
to
too,
flip it back to you.
I just the one thing I wanted to highlight about your answer honestly, which I totally agree with, is that so much of this is not just about your own individual play group, but so much of it is honestly about players that work together. So when you hear systems that people talk about as being GM-less, games like Amber and numerous other examples like this, the expectation, apparently Cosmic Patrol is another one. The expectation is that you want to be able to work together and not just have someone dictate to you how, a game is going to play. And having watched some very gifted GMs spend a lot of their time just kind of monologuing a session where they're doing everything, and then every so
Yeah.
often like a player feeds into them. And this has happened to me where not where I've done it, but I've seen excellent GMs sort of fall into this trap where the players are just sort of like, and the players often are having a great time, but they're
Yeah.
really just listening to someone
Where
deliver them a movie,
yeah, the
like they're
players are the Greek chorus rather
yeah,
than the
and at a
GM
certain
being the
point
Greek chorus. Yeah.
you're just kind of like, is this really is the fiction really being shaped collaboratively, or is it just we're doing all this and then can I get an amen from the choir, like is sort of what it feels like. um and so there's obviously we don't want that. But again, that has to do with me with someone that's not paying close enough attention to the relationship between what a GM does and what a player does and what a group of players do. And what you said in your answer that I think is right is that it's not that the system fails, it's whether or not the players and the game master are working together in such a way that a system is likely, or a campaign is likely not to work. It's more likely not to work because of whatever's going on with the players and the GM than it is because there's
Yeah.
something about the rules that are off, right?
Yep.
Because you just wouldn't play that. Like I've played Shadowrun a couple of times. I have nothing against Shadowrun, but like Shadowrun is like, I don't know, roll 40 D6s for all the different stuff you do. And it's kind of mind boggling how much they do things based on dice, but it's fine.
Yeah.
And I played a little bit in the Star Wars system with from, I guess, Fantasy Flight with the different level dice, which is again a variant on the Hope and Fear thing was partially felt to me very similar to that system in Star Wars.
Mm.
And these things are all fine, but I don't know that they would be my first choice of this is a system that I like. But if I'm playing it with people that I like, then I'm certainly happy to play Shadowrun, or I'm happy to play this particular thing of Star Wars, or whatever the case may be, because of the people. And similarly, if the people break down and I'm not having a great time, then it doesn't really matter how great the system is,
Yeah.
unless I have players that are going to make it, that'll
Right.
make it sing, that I'm really going to enjoy it with.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't matter how good your system is if the campaign is falling apart
doesn't
or the players are
compensate for that, right?
disagreeing. Yeah.
I like a rule system that will save you from lousy GMs or from bad faith players is a system that isn't really functional for anybody else, right? Like you could
Hmm.
build a system that's so restrictive in terms of rules that there's very little room for anyone to do anything wrong.
Yeah,
And that
there
system
has to
would
be
be,
some vulnerability,
oh God,
some
yeah.
risk.
You know,
Yeah.
like there has to be a little bit of we do this based on a norm, not we do this because rule 5 on subpart 3 on page 325 says this. Like that's just, no one does that. Like then everyone is just looking over their shoulder to see if they screwed up a rule
Yeah.
rather than actually sort of getting themselves into the game system. So a lot of it does feel to me, I think you're right, to be about people. Like the Dragonbane experience that I mentioned before, was an example of that they're currently investigating this fort, that they ran into because a random encounter caused them to encounter this dragon knight who's hunting for these cultists, and basically was like insisted that the party come with him because they needed to make sure that the party were not cultists.
Mm.
And the dragon knight's actually pretty powerful, but they could have tried to escape from him, but they were like, well, actually we kind of want to get a sense of what, maybe this guy has a lead on the stuff that we're looking for. And he comes and they find, they introduce themselves to the other two dragon knights that are with him, and these people are all a little too hardcore, like, well, we do this because we must destroy the cultists, including you if you are cultists. Like they're a little too like, we fight evil, but we fight evil at the cost of anyone existing. It's like very cultish itself. But the reason I bring it up is that started with a random encounter. They
Yeah.
followed it, and then just like we've talked about this with you in Esper Genesis, where all of a sudden you all wanted to take over the space station, and that's what ended up happening, even though that wasn't part of the campaign, it was just something you wanted to do. Here we
Mhm.
had these people who were like, I really want to go find out what's going on with these knights in this fort. And so I was like, sounds good, let's just go in that direction, because the players were sort of directing the part of the story. And we're not way off the rails. Like I'm not worried that we'll never get back to whatever the so-called main quest line is. Whatever, like this will give them further development of character and understanding, and that's just a function of trusting your players and the players trusting the GM. But I don't think the system is going to save you from that. And I think sometimes there are systems that are
No.
trying to dial out the worst, most ragged parts of the human personality. And I don't think you can do that. I think TTRPGs have to have the ragged human edge for them to actually anyone to matter to anybody. And so trying to kind of rules lawyer your way out of that is,
Yeah.
a fool's errand, I think,
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I think you just got to find a great group of people. You also have to be in a good mindset yourself
Oh, totally.
and ready to be creative and to imagine and to accept, or work with or expand on what other people present to the
A lot
table,
of, lot of yes and, right? A lot of yes
Yes,
and
or no,
or no
but
but. Yeah, right.
uh, so yeah, I'd say that's my answer, or I suppose both of our answers to that question of like it's really going to depend on the players that you have at the table. And I mean that seems to be the answer to both of the questions that both you and I just asked, which
Depends on the
is,
players.
what system is the best for role play? What system is, how much crunchy do we want versus not crunchy, and what systems, or additions or campaigns are best, or when do we decide to move on? I think the through line is that it always depends on the people and where they're at in their lives and what stories they want to tell. Um, because ultimately, all of these rules and all this stuff is just a framework that is around something that has been around in humanity for a long time, which is just storytelling. We could be sitting around a campfire and listening to,
Yep.
our caveman Bob, describing some beautiful tale of when he took down a saber-toothed tiger. But then what makes it cool for us in our age now is that we get to relive that in a way that has rules and mechanics, and we can expand on the story. And maybe
Yep.
the saber-toothed tiger has, personality or can cast magic or something. So yeah, I think, ultimately it's my encouragement to those that are listening to try other games and try, new tabletop games, especially if you find yourself with a group of friends that you really enjoy smoothly playing D&D or Daggerheart or whatever game with.
Yep.
You are perfectly poised to then go into those areas of further unfamiliarity
Yep.
because your group works together so well.
Yep.
That's more than half of the problem, honestly, in our cases of campaigns ending, because of friendships ending or because of, real life or scheduling or stuff like that. So if you got a good group, that's your time to try to explore unfamiliarity and perhaps things that don't work, um, because your group is the stable thing. But if your group becomes unstable, everything else falls apart.
So it falls by the wayside. Yeah. Again, yeah, I totally, second that advice. Getting a group, making sure that you know what the group wants, what they're interested in, what they value, their red lines, the safety tool stuff, lines and veils, knowing what they won't want. And all of those things will make a huge difference in sort of what it is that they decide they want to do later on. One other thing I just wanted to very quickly say was that I've been also setting up for a Dragonlance campaign because my level Eberron campaign has concluded after 5 years. They hit
Oh,
they
it's
went level
done.
1 to level 20, so
Oh my
they did it.
gosh.
5 years,
As of
not
when did
not
that
not too
finish?
bad. 4 levels a year, is not
Right.
terrible.
When did that finish? When did that come to an end?
ArfCon, it wrapped up during ArfCon.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we're going to have our little post-mortem
Level
episode in a
20.
week or so. But it was great. It was great to see that. And so I'm setting up for Dragonlance campaign. But the
Wow.
reason I mentioned that is that same group of people is that we had our session 0, which is always really important, I think. No
Hmm.
streaming, just off stream talking about, and we got a chance to talk about sort of the world and what the sort of the nature of the War of the Lance and what Draconians are and like what exactly what we mean by the metallic versus the chromatic dragons and what species are permitted and not permitted in this world. Like you don't have halflings in the world of Dragonlance. You have Kender, which is its own separate thing.
Yeah.
You don't have, you have the Knights of Solamnia, which is a particular order of knights that has this history, or the Mages of High Sorcery. And again, that's another example. And they have their own gods and so forth. And like giving them this understanding that you're not going to be able to do absolutely anything because if you did, then it wouldn't really be a setting that mattered, right? Like if you can just be like, great, I'm going to make my Gennaro wizard that, can do this, that, and the other thing. And you're like, well, that doesn't really exist in this world.
Hmm.
If you want to say let them do that, you could, but then what you're basically doing is making it into some generic fantasy setting as opposed to really doing something that has its own flavor. And so I mentioned that to say that understanding the guardrails of the system or the setting and establishing those guardrails is also useful and will save problems, prevent problems later on, especially because it will give it, people will, you talked about creativity coming from constraint before, basically. If
Yeah.
you work around it and you're still able to be creative, it's very satisfying in something like Gloomhaven. It's
Hmm.
also very satisfying to be creative within a particular context, either setting or game. And so thinking about that, about how you create that context and how you set up guardrails to do that becomes really important too.
Yeah.
So
It's great. We both just love games
games are just
and
great.
playing games. Honestly, it's been a great silver lining's not the best, not the phrase I'm looking for, but or through line, I guess, to my life continually for the last, 10 years at this point. Um, Playing these games, experiencing these stories, and expanding to live lives beyond just our own.
Totally.
Despite the magic of these tabletop games and storytelling with friends is that no matter or sometimes matter what's happening in your life, you can be in a different place, different time,
Yep.
different conditions, experiences, different
Yep.
levels of power. So,
Yep. For
yeah,
me,
that's what makes it special for me.
over 4 decades of that for me,
Yeah, I got some way to go.
which is a little
I'm
disturbing.
only, yeah, aside from a little game session or two in middle school, and by that I mean literally a game session or two or three, and then that was about it. I didn't start playing any tabletop until after graduating high school, and that was a little over 10 years ago for me.
Yeah,
But
it's hard to believe.
yeah, so I'm only in. I still think I say this to some people, that I feel like I'm in my infancy as a GM, and then my friends who are absolute diehard fans of my GMing, or my colleagues in the tabletop space who
George,
know
yeah.
my work are like, "Are you crazy in your infancy? Or you've accomplished so much? You've done all this stuff." But yeah, no, there's so much, and what a also even in the years to come, what a wonderful hobby to retire into. And that doesn't involve having to, you know, use your body that much when we get into old age.
That's
It's
true.
like,
It'll
of all the things, my
always
number one hobby is football.
exactly.
And then you're
I
80.
remember
What are you gonna do?
I've always wanted to be into shot put, and that was
Yeah,
always
it's
my,
like
like
shop. It's great, but
it's
that's
totally
time is
true.
limited.
And it gives you an opportunity, by the way, to sort of have your own character arc, if you will, or your GM
Yeah,
arc, or your,
over your whole life.
over the course of your time. And that's like been a great pleasure for me to watch over, decade year to year, decade to decade, about how these things change. And there's a through line back to the, person that I was at 13 or 14, back in the mid 80s when I was first playing the red box and first getting into D&D. But there's
Hmm.
also so many advances that have happened, and so many positive things that have gone forward in terms of systems, mechanics, what our expectations are, the nuances of philosophy, moral conditions, like what is
Yeah,
permissible and not permissible. These are all, things that we've sort of worked out together. And to go back to your point, as a community, as a group of people, so in a broader sense, what matters is what matters to your table, but also what matters to the hobby is what matters to the people playing in the hobby, and
yeah.
like, and in a way, all of us are having that discussion all the time. So,
Hmm.
I just think I think the sort of takeaway here is it's just less about the rule system and
Yeah,
more about the people using the rules,
yeah,
right? In this case, it's it's not, don't blame the player, blame the game. This is don't blame the game, blame the player. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah. Or the
it's
GM.
about or support the player. It's about make
Yeah.
sure that the players are the ones that you focus on the most. So,
And I'd say that this conversation's making me realize that I've had a little epiphany that, there are people that in if the key to a great gaming experience, great storytelling experience, as we've identified, is surrounding yourself with people that, regardless of if the system's good or bad or campaign choice or whatever, as long as you're with these people that you're confident that you all enjoy spending time around each
right,
other.
right.
There are a lot of people that I'm mostly just friends with that I have not run D&D for. That I'm like, man, now that I think about it, I
Gotta run
should
D&D
play
for those
D&D for
people.
these
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
we get along so well in
Yep.
life, or there's people I've known for a long time.
I feel like
Um,
if you're friends with them, it's very unlikely that it's not going to work, right? Because like
right.
one of the reasons you like them is because they're interesting people, and
Yeah.
they're thoughtful and creative,
And
and
the reason you remain friends is because it's continuing to work.
yeah, like I'm
Yeah.
not saying it works with everybody, but I don't know. I feel like generally you're going to get along, people will get along well in a game system,
Hmm.
especially D&D, because it's not, I can understand having friends that do not love super competitive stuff
Yeah.
where, I win, you lose. Like I could totally get that. But D&D where you're sort of collectively playing out a story, and the only extent of like winning and losing is when everyone is collectively winning
Yeah.
or not, that feels like, I don't know if I'd call it low stakes, but it feels like it's not playing into the things that people dislike the most, right?
Hmm.
Even social deduction, like mafia or werewolf games or things like that, those things could be upsetting to people.
Right.
I don't know that D&D would be that way,
Yeah.
or that these other role-playing systems we're talking about would be that way, because you're working together towards common purpose in a story.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to set it as my resolution now. I think that you are one of those people that I want to run some form of D&D for, at least, either a one shot, because honestly, the extent that it's been, and this has honestly been at my own behest. I've been too busy, and a lot of it has been as I'm now cresting into a new chapter of my GMing and my D&D and all this stuff.
mhm.
Um, a lot of it has been me. I've been very good in my own life about uh, when opportunities come, I take advantage of them,
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to get to a point where I have done so much work on, with other people on other people's channels. It's so many amazing games that I've played just as a player on our Vanilla Run, on Made Gaming, with Little Red Dot, with um, Critical Role,
I was gonna
all
say
these other
with
places.
Critical Role.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not
Like,
very the lead.
well, I guess I'll mention them. Um, that you know um it's now getting to a point where it's, I'll look at other games and or other um shows that I watch, and I'm like, oh, I would do that differently, but then I don't go and do it differently. So let this be a resolution to myself and those that are listening as well, that if there are people in your life that you haven't really gamed much with, or that you know you have constantly been the player but you haven't DM for,
Right.
and you feel like you want to DM, then yeah, go do it, because it sounds like there could be a really great opportunity for you there if you have a group of
Absolutely.
friends that really worked well together.
And
So
can
I am going
broaden
to
your
DM
relate.
for you a
Yeah.
little bit more this
And
year.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
and also and you can broaden your relationship with those people too, including family
exactly.
members. You know,
Yeah.
running stuff for family members, you'd be surprised. Even and also just quickly, older family members are just as capable of this. You know, like the
Mhm.
idea that well, we can't run this for grandma because I
Yeah.
don't know
Are
about
you
that. I,
kidding?
I think you'd be
You should,
surprised.
like, your grandma's the first person you should run it for.
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of occasions where you'd be surprised actually how well people could pick up on different things and could be a real opportunity to sort of play out vulnerabilities, to kind of talk about things that you can't express to a friend because of something, but you can kind of do it in a character. And if everyone's open to each other, they kind of will get it, and
Hmm.
it can be a real opening. And we're not even talking about streaming here. If you want to do it in an actual play environment,
Yeah.
and you have the ability, sure. But I'm just talking about playing at home with, a couple of people, two, three, four people, and like, and really playing something with them that lets you explore in that way, where it's not just I win, you lose, but where it's
Yeah.
people sort of telling out a story together. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Good stuff, man.
Great.
This is
Yeah.
good.
Hmm.
And a little bit of a wide-ranging show, but
Yeah.
that's well
Yeah, we had
suited for,
like two general question topics that then intermingled and related to each other, and then we
yeah,
reached a conclusion.
yeah,
Yeah.
intermingle and morph. We did we see and we tied it together in a nice.
Yes, we're good at,
Um,
it's like we're good at this or something.
that's what we do. That's our job.
Yeah.
And we only could do it in D&D. No, just kidding. That's completely not what I was saying. But this was great.
Yeah.
And we will be recording, as I said, more of these probably when I am out in San Francisco. I expect that we will probably record something, I'm guessing,
Yeah, it would be
for
cool.
this
Good if we did.
in person. Zach has recorded something out here. I should, record
Hmm.
something when I'm out there. We'll
Yeah.
see. But this should be going up hopefully right around the time of Roleplay by the Bay. So again, if you see this beforehand and you're in the Bay Area, please go check out the San Francisco Public Library website. I'm sure you will see be able to find the title there. Again, it is Roleplay by the Bay, and it's ROLEPLAY, Roleplay by the Bay, a tabletop role playing game event, and or a tabletop role playing game con, I guess. And we will, we're going to be there doing our thing, and it should be a lot of fun. We would love to say hello to all of you. But otherwise, please do follow us on GenGMs. Please subscribe to us there. We're almost up to 100 subscribers. Please get us up to that 100 number. That would be a big step for us. And let us know if there are other questions that you'd like us to answer or want to think about. And get ready for more frequent video content now that we have an editor who's working on it. So, yeah. So I guess with no further ado, that's Zach.
Hmm. And
You got it right. No, you got it right
that
the first time. You were
this
that. Yep,
this is
there it is.
this is Greg.
And we'll see you all down the line.
Mhm.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.